Folks, welcome into That Betting Show for January 17th, 2019. He's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour on Twitter at RightSideVP. The fastest 20 minutes you're going to have of your sports betting day. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs here at sportsbookreview.com. Let's get right into it. Hot topics of the day, Teddy. And we're going to start in the association. Never fails to amaze us each and every night. Massive comebacks, crazy things, great stats being put up. Monster fourth quarter by the Nets propel them over the Houston Rockets. How about that fourth quarter by the Nets? And Teddy, numerous comebacks. Just when you thought the door was shut in this basketball game, it opened back up. Talk about some of the nonsense, or if you're holding a ticket on the right side of this one, the good graces that you actually got in this game.
Sure. Look, I've been running good all January. I've certainly been running good the last week or two. And yeah, I had a Nets ticket in my pocket, a big Nets ticket in my pocket last night. They're down by 11 with 2.5 to go in regulation. Nobody. In the regular season, you don't come back and win those games. They were down by 9 with under a minute to play. And then Spencer Dinwiddie went nuts. Hits a three, get a stop. Hit a three, get a stop. Hit a three, get a stop. Game was into OT. I mean, they stole that game in regulation. Stole it, sent it to overtime. And, of course, you got a Nets ticket in your pocket. You're like, no OT. Harden hit the shot at the buzzer. He didn't. Overtime. Rockets hitting everything. I mean, Harden hit a million impossible shots last night. Impossible. You're like, all right, it's just not going to be that night. It's not going to be that night. The Rockets go up 7 in overtime. What happens? Nets do it again in the last 50 seconds of OT. Draining shots, getting stops, steal it with the bucket at the buzzer. It was fun. It was a fun one to cash. Brutal if you had Houston minus the points. They weren't the wrong side, I'll put it that way. And the Rockets, of course, got Eric Gordon back last night. But this is what makes the drama so exciting. And it wasn't the only game in the NBA with incredible point spread drama last night. Let's keep moving. Talk about the Spurs and the Mavs.
Absolutely, man. Spurs and the Mavs also went off. How about this again, Teddy? I mean, Mr. Bionic, I guess, James Harden going for 58 points in that loss yesterday, easily hitting the over 145, 142. That offensive scoring analytics, I believe, Teddy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Teddy, did I hear a stat there that Houston is taking more three-pointers than actual two-point shots in the game? Absolute wildness out there.
With the lineup they have on the floor right now, that's all the Rockets can do. They took twice as many three-point shots as two-point shots last night. They set an NBA record with 70 attempted three-pointers. That's all Houston can do right now. They have no low-post game whatsoever, and the Nets showed them that last night.
Spurs used the second-half comeback to overtake the Mavericks. Luka Doncic, the rookie, averaging over 20 points a game, chimes in with 25, but it wasn't enough. Dallas actually closed in this game as a one-point favorite with an over of 216. Stays under the total, but if you had a Spurs ticket on this one, Teddy, you are a winner.
Sure, in a game where San Antonio was out of it. They were getting blown out in that ball game early. And then what happens? By the third quarter, San Antonio puts their foot down, takes control of the ball game. It's tight late. The Spurs hit the shots. The Mavs did not. And, of course, if you're betting against San Antonio on the road, you made money. If you're betting on Dallas at home, you made money. Not last night, you didn't. The roles reversed. Spurs improve to 8-14 on the highway. The Mavs drop to 16-6 at home in another game featuring a wild comeback. Of course, after San Antonio got bombed the previous game, you kind of thought they would come out with a little effort, and they did, knocking off Dallas, and that come from behind outing.
Another game in the association, Teddy, with point spread, allegations, as we like to say, late in the game. A free fall short. The game ends in a pusher, depending on where you're shopping at yesterday. But the Warriors win a shootout in Oracle. 147 to 140 in this game, Teddy. So much for playing in elevation the night before. So much for traveling back and maybe a team waiting on you in Golden State, in Oakland to play. Steph Curry dropped 7 3-pointers in the third quarter alone, easily going over the total. And how about this, when you say, like, hey, what did it go over, Donnie? 205, 206? No, 242, and easily chimes in there. Warriors outrunning in this one, Teddy, but do get the push in this game, but the game does go over here.
The Pelicans scored 140 points and didn't cover the point spread in regulation, as dogs. That's tough. And you want to talk drama, go through the play-by-play. If you're watching it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The final minute of this game, back and forth over the number. Pelicans get a bucket. Warriors hit free throws. Pelicans get a bucket. Warriors hit free throws. Pelicans get a 3 to knock it to 7. And that's the final score. It was one heck of a drama-filled final minute as Golden State rallies from behind. All of a sudden, the Warriors showing signs. And oh, by the way, DeMarcus Cousins back on the practice floor. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Cousins comes back initially. I think Golden State, in the short term, with Cousins on the floor, is going to be a bet against squad as they get used to playing with him. The market's likely to up Golden State's power rating initially with Cousins on the floor. My initial tendency, downgrade that. And it's also worth noting, with the non-cover last night, this is a Warriors team that is 7-21-1 against the spread when they're not laying double digits this year. The only role they've been good in against the spread is as double-digit chalk.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Boogie Cousins, obviously, they're going to work him in slowly, one would think. But he's already vocal, Teddy, saying, we are the single most hated team in sports. Let's see if he can come in and spark that fire. We need a little bit of a fire to get us through January and February. It was a good game last night to watch. A lot of records going down, 3-point shots falling at will. Now, we go to the NCAA basketball. Look, you see some fights in the NBA, and guys get teched up all the time. But very rare, Teddy, they have two coaches teed up and thrown out at the same time in the second half. That took place last night when UConn traveled to Tulsa. UConn came in actually as a small favorite in this one, left with a loss. But Frank Haith and Dan Hurley, Frank Haith used to that calm guy on the sidelines. We see Dan Hurley get into it just a little bit at times here, but both of them, Teddy, get teed up and thrown out. This number crushes the final line on the total of the over-under in this game. UConn, look, reestablishing themselves, getting a new coach, going through some bumps in the road. But I always find it interesting where both coaches get teed up and chucked. And it wasn't even like in the last minute. Teddy, you see them throw their code or maybe get teed off in the last 30 seconds. They didn't get a call go their way all night. They said, you know what? I'm going to make my point and get out of here. Well over 10 minutes left in this ball game. Both of them ejected, Teddy.
And the coaches are friends. They've known each other for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Both coaches after the game said, this one's on the refs. The refs took a situation where we, as colleagues and friends for 20 years, we're talking to each other. The refs overreacted. The refs escalated the situation, and it's the fault of the referees. And I don't know what happened this offseason in the AAC, but you want to have fun, look at foul rates by year, by conference in college hoops. The AAC tends to be, or has tended to be, a conference where the refs swallow their whistles at times. They let them play physical. There's a bunch of physical teams with MO, the Cincinnatis and the UConns of the world. When you look at this year, so they've been in foul rate like 28th, 29th, 31st, 30th among conferences over the last 5 years. This year, their foul rate is the highest, number one. So they went from like 28th in foul rate to 1 in foul rate. By conference, that doesn't happen. I don't know if they hired a bunch of new officials or what's going on, but all of a sudden, every AAC ref is blowing their whistle at every opportunity. That's why we're seeing some of these games fly over the total, like last night's UConn-Tulsa game that went over the total by more than 30 points.
Yeah, first time over 400 games, I believe. Last week, Mick Cronin actually got ejected from a game. So the ACC refs jumping to that. They don't want to hear any guff coming back at them, Teddy. You're going to sit down, you're going to coach your basketball game, and we're going to tee you up or get you out of here. So something interesting to look forward to, but did crush that over number last night for UConn. Moving on, shifting gears, Teddy, conference champion. We've been keeping an eye on these conference games to let you guys know exactly what's taking place in some line movements here. Rams support shows up a little bit yesterday on Wednesday as we creep toward game time on Sunday afternoon. Also, Teddy, interesting. We put a lot of stock in weather, and I know a lot of gamblers do, and they should, because if it's going to be heavy rain, heavy winds, yes, it's going to affect your total or the play that you're wishing to get down on. But this is interesting because last week we keep talking about the same type of things. Maybe there's snow in the forecast in New England last week. Doesn't happen. The overcorrection of the market, the game goes easily over the total once you figure out it's 28, 29 degrees and perfectly sunny with not much wind. Looking at Kansas City this weekend, Teddy, same type of stuff. Oh, my goodness, the Ice Bowl 3 is going to come into effect here in Kansas City. Not so fast. Those temperatures that we're looking at 5 degrees to 0, now creeping up, seeing the latest weather reports, Teddy, in the mid-20s with light winds and no precipitation. Talk about some of these line movements midweek here that we're looking at.
Sure, and the one that surprised me at least a little bit, Rams-Saints, which you can find threes right now on there with New Orleans. And the Rams money that's come during the week, I from the people I talked to here in Vegas, all right, they were firmly convinced this line at 3.5. Initially, they thought, all right, it's going to go down to 3. It didn't. There was enough pressure and resistance to keep it at 3.5, and that made people think that the line's going to go up. They're like, all right, there's enough resistance. It's moving up, not down. Well, then all of a sudden we get into Wednesday and Thursday morning, and the money's coming on LA, not the Saints. I still think it closes 3.5 in most places, maybe even 4. I still think it's going up, but frankly, we haven't seen the signs of that yet. In fact, we've seen the signs of that coming in the opposite direction. Now, you talk about the weather at Arrowhead. The latest I saw was supposed to be 18 at kickoff instead of 5 at kickoff. It's still not a balmy day by any stretch of the imagination, but the pressure on the total, there was a lot of under pressure on this total. And all leading indicator shops say this total's going back up. 55.5, the current number. If you like the over, I'd bet it's sooner rather than later.
And just a little bit later in the show here, we'll go over that New England-Kansas City game. Then, of always, on Football Fridays here at SportsbookReview.com, we'll review both of those games in totality, see if we can find some edges for you guys out there. If you haven't done so yet on Twitter, give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks. Also, with the YouTube channel that you're watching this right now on, get the notifications. Every time me and Teddy put out a new show, you'll get that notification. Be able to check out that betting show here at SportsbookReview.com. And when we talk about those line movements, where do we get those at? SBRodds.com. Get the latest line movements any time of day. Just check it out there. You'll be putting more money in your pocket than not. Segment number 3, watch what you bet, Teddy. People are gamblers here. Let's get into it. The last time we checked in on the association with the Sixers and the Indiana Pacers, Teddy, both blowout winners. One at home, one on the road. They're going to tee it up tonight. Sixers versus Pacers. Pacers as an early favorite, getting even more money. The time I punched up this ticket here, the Pacers were -3 total of 224.5. Money line split about 130, -150. 7 p.m. in Indianapolis tonight, Teddy. And as we talked about it, now the situation that we have in this game, Pacers are a pretty good home team. We know that. Sixers came off really knocking around the T-Wolves. Maybe a little bit of an emotional game for Jimmy Butler now heading back on the road. Could that have an effect in this game? I don't even want to say a letdown game, but saying I was so emotional for this game. Now we go on the road and face a decent Pacers team. Is that going to play into it tonight, Teddy?
A decent Pacers team. Pacers are ahead of the Sixers in the standings right now. Indiana's a monster. And
come on, we're going to get them, Teddy. We're going to get them. We'll get them.
Maybe you will. But from a point spread perspective, there's no comparison between these two teams. Indiana's making money and Philly hasn't. The Sixers have been, I'm not going to say an overvalued commodity, but at least a properly priced commodity. And the Pacers have been undervalued all year long. Indiana, by the way, got that win over Phoenix, 131-97. They got it despite the fact that Oladipo didn't even do anything. Quote, they don't need me to score right now. I don't need to score. I had 4 shots in the first half, and we're up 11. That's the beauty of our team. We play well together. But the quotes, I'm going to give 2 quotes right here and tell you what my opinion is on this game. We had 2 teams coming off incredibly hot shooting performances where the T-Wolves hung, 149 or something. And the Pacers made everything. Here's Nate McMillan, Indiana's head coach. We established ourselves right from the start defensively. We forced 10 turnovers in the first quarter. We had 8 or 9 deflections, so we were really active. That's Pacers defense, all of a sudden, which hasn't been as good of late, coming off a really good game. Jimmy Butler talking about the 149 points they scored. Quote, that's how we look when we guard. I think we do a great job of scoring defense, but of scoring points, but whenever we guard, we're a really tough team. So let's learn from this. I think we're going to see defense tonight. Both of these squads have it in them. We saw everything fall for both squads in the last game that they played. No surprise here if this is a relatively low-scoring game between a couple of squads that have potential to really step it up on the defensive end of the floor.
Another interesting one, and don't do a double take today, folks. By the time you'll be getting this show, that betting show with me and Teddy, you're actually going to have an NBA game that's going to be underway between the Knicks and the Wizards, which starts at 3 p.m. noon tip out there in Vegas from the O2 Arena over in Great Britain. So one to keep an eye out for. So if you're looking at the lineups and you're saying, you know what, I think I might want to get down on the Knicks, make sure you know that time because that game is going to be teeing it up pretty quickly here. Let's head to NCAA action. Michigan State, should I say the Red Hot Spartans, come in to face the Big Red on Thursday night. But looking at some of these numbers here, 3-3 in conference, Nebraska, red hot Michigan State, Teddy, then they hang a nice +1.5 out there to try to sink your teeth into a total of 146. Moneyline pretty cheap out there, +113, 133 split. 8 p.m. Fox Sports 1. As we talked about, Michigan coming in 4-1 straight up and against the spread on the road this year. Huskers coming in 9-0 in their home court, 6-1-1 against the spread. So certainly putting money in your pocket. Michigan State, red hot. Nebraska, the Big Red, Teddy. Any advantages here between these two?
Well, we're talking about two teams that have had monster point spread runs. I got Sparty 13-3 against the spread their last 16 games. This is a team that perennially is a Final Four contender. They have a named head coach in Tom Izzo. There's superstars all over the floor, NBA prospects all over the floor. At 13-3 ATS, it's a heck of a run. I'm not convinced that Sparty can go on a much better run than that. They're a very public college basketball team. When it comes to Nebraska Huskers, you talked about what they've done at home. 9-0 straight up, 6-1-1 against the spread. How about this for Nebraska? Their last 38 line games, 29 wins, 8 losses, 1 push. That's insane. That's not a short run. That's not a medium run. That is extended point spread success from a team that has been dramatically overvalued for the better part of 2 years. So you say, which team's going to hold their value? Is it the public top 25 squad that everyone knows the coach? Or is it most people don't really know who frickin' Tim Miles is? I'll tell you this. I thank the Lord that Nebraska didn't fire Tim Miles after that 12-win season back in 2017 because all he's done is cash tickets for me for the last 2 years. The guy, I owe him a Christmas card. I owe him a Christmas present. I don't step in front of Tim Miles right now. The Nebraska Cornhuskers continue to be an undervalued commodity even after this epic 38-game point spread run.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at, obviously a lot of public support there for Michigan State coming in here. Low line definitely leads toward Nebraska. A couple of similar looks last night that we had, Teddy, with Illinois at home and also Penn State in 2 similar situations. Those ended up going 1-1. We'll see if Nebraska can pull out that short dog feature. Sunday action, Teddy, 6:40 p.m. East Coast, 3:40 out there on the West Coast. I can't wait for this game. So much going into it. Big Red, can he get over the hump with Kansas City? Kansas City may be putting those losing ways in the playoffs behind the rearview mirror at Arrowhead. You have the New England Patriots coming in who crush everybody at home, but a different story this year on the road, going 3-5 overall. We'll see if that Kansas City defense can hold up against Tom Brady and vice versa. Looking at this game heading into it, Teddy, as we talked about already, the weather conditions going to be chilly in Kansas City. Not much wind and obviously precipitation expected in this one. But did we see the normalness of New England on the road this year? Is that what we're going to get? Or are we going to see this New England team fired up? Bill Belichick's ready to go. We're going to shut down young Patrick Mahomes on our way to yet another Super Bowl run here, Teddy.
When you think about the first meeting, and again, I don't put too much emphasis on the first meeting. When you think about that first meeting, the Patriots moved the ball up and down the field on Kansas City. And Kansas City, they had, 2 big play touchdowns, one to Hunt, one to Hill. The Hill one's a big one to cover the point spread. They had a kickoff return touchdown. They took advantage of a Patriots turnover deep in their own territory. Basically, they had 24 relatively cheap points in that ball game out of the, 40 that they scored. Of course, the rematch is at Arrowhead. Not in KC, but there's no question this Patriots team that is trying to play the underdog role and doing it successfully. We'll talk about that in just a minute when it comes to off the mic. But it's this dynasty Patriots team is facing that no one believes in us. That's a great strategy for New England. It's worked very well for them in seasons past. We're talking about Tom Brady, who's thrown 228 consecutive passes in the playoffs without an interception, and a Chiefs defense that has shown real vulnerability to balanced attacks all season. The Patriots are capable of running the football. That's been their offense over the back half of the campaign. Grind it out on the ground. For Kansas City to win and cover this game, they're going to have to stop that, and they're going to have to find Patrick Mahomes a way to make some big plays like they did in the last ball game time these two teams met. And the Chiefs defense the last couple of weeks has been really good. Is that aberration? Is that an improvement? We'll find out on Sunday. But I ran into this. I didn't double check it. And I should double check the stuff before I put on air. But it was just so fascinating to me. The 4 quarterbacks from the AFC that have beaten Tom Brady in the playoffs over the last 20 years. Everyone knows Peyton Manning. That's one. I'll give you $1 million. You can name the other 3 without looking it up because you won't. Jake Plummer. I don't have $1 million to give you, not cash. Jake Plummer, Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez. That's it. So you're saying, oh my God, the elite QBs. No, it hasn't been the elite QBs beating Tom Brady in the postseason. Patrick Mahomes will become and be viewed as an elite QB if he can win this game for Kansas City. Right now, at this stage of his career, we can only look at him as an upstart. This is a prove-it game for Patrick Mahomes against a pretty good defensive mind in Belichick.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch, especially on the defensive side for Kansas City, Teddy. That front seven can get after the quarterback. If you give Tom Brady some time to throw and he can manipulate the pocket, that's going to do some damage. But we'll see how that plays out Sunday. As I said again, Conference Championship weekend. We'll wrap that up tomorrow on the channels here at sportsbookraview.com. We'll go over both of those games again, try to propel you into the weekend. Segment number 4, Teddy, off the mic. And we talked about it a little bit right there. Motivation for these teams, millionaire athletes, teams that have been there, done that, and put rings on their fingers already. Obviously, the Patriots have 5 of them, but playing that underdog role to try to fire themselves up one more time. Everybody out here, Tom Brady says, we suck. Well, I mean, Patriots really don't suck, but you could argue that on the road, they suck a little bit there, Teddy, but playing into it, putting out, Julian Edelman, you saw the pictures coming up on Twitter. They're selling T-shirts now that says bet against us. And the interesting part about it is, Teddy, is gambling is almost ready to break into New England there. So we can almost bet against you if you're a New England resident, or a Massachusetts resident. But talk about some of this motivation coming in here, because we saw it last week with Sean Payton rolling in the wheelbarrow of cash with the trophy. Now you're seeing the Patriots saying, nobody respects us, even though we go to the Super Bowl more times than anybody else. Do you believe in this motivation, Teddy? Your thoughts?
The Patriots have done a really good job of finding ways to kick their own ass. Give yourself a little extra boost. And this is great for New England. We're underdogs. And of course, when you're talking about mainstream people, they don't necessarily understand the nuance of point spreads. Of course, they're underdogs. Kansas City is power rated equal to they are, and they're on the road at Arrowhead. That's why they're the dogs. That's not the thought process going into Edelman's mind. He's like, we're underdogs? Yeah. No one believes in us. Good motivational technique. It's worked for the Patriots in years past. We'll see if it works again on Sunday. I certainly don't behoove Edelman for saying that, because he's right. Bet against that. And I love the fact that they're actively talking bet, not play against us. It's bet against us. This is great. This is not something that could have or would have happened even 5 years ago, let alone 20.
Seems like weeks and weeks go by here, each state signing up to get on board here, Teddy, a booming industry. Hopefully me and Teddy will be around for another 25 years to talk about each and every state getting into the mix here. That betting show for January 17th, your fastest 20 minutes in sports betting. One-stop shop for all your sports betting needs right here at sportsbookraview.com. Teddy and I will both be back tomorrow. Conference Championship weekend, Football Friday here on the channels. He's Teddy, I'm Donnie. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll catch you tomorrow. Have a nice day.